If you are broke right now, it is not because you are lazy. It is not because you are stupid. It is not because you are cursed. And it is not because God forgot about you. You are broke because you are never taught how wealth actually works. Most young Africans are not poor by choice. They are poor by design. A design shaped by history, by broken systems, and by survival thinking passed down from generation to generation. When you grow up surrounded by struggle, your mind is trained to survive, not to grow. And until you understand this, you will keep blaming yourself for problems that were never created by you. From childhood, money was never explained to you logically. It was explained emotionally. You saw stress in your parents' faces. You heard arguments at the end of every month. You watched adults panic when bills arrived. Slowly, without anyone saying it directly, your mind learned one dangerous lesson. Money equals fear. So your brain adapted the only way it knew how. It focused on surviving today instead of building tomorrow. In many African homes, money conversations sound the same. Money is hard to get. Be grateful for anything. Don't take risks. At least you have something. People like us don't do those things. These statements are not evil, but they are dangerous. They teach the brain to aim low and celebrate survival instead of freedom. You are trained to be safe, not wealthy. School trained you to obey. Religion trained you to endure. Society trained you to conform. No one trained you to build. No one trained you to think in decades instead of days. No one trained you to delay pleasure. No one trained you to use money as a tool instead of an emotion. When a human being grows up around constant struggle, the brain becomes addicted to short-term relief. It starts asking, how do I feel better now, instead of how do I become better later? This is why betting feels attractive. This is why parties feel necessary. This is why expensive phones feel urgent. This is why flexing feels important. These are not moral failures. They are dopamine responses to a hard life. But dopamine without discipline destroys futures. Wealthy people are not special. Their brains were trained differently. They were taught to plan, to delay gratification, to think in systems, to sacrifice today for tomorrow. You are taught to survive today and hope tomorrow works itself out. Hope is not a strategy. Money is not evil. Money is not corrupting. Money does not change people. Money reveals people. If you give money to someone with no discipline, it exposes their chaos. If you give money to someone with structure, it multiplies their order. This is why many people fear wealth. Deep down, they are afraid of who they might become if responsibility increases. In African society, success often comes with guilt. When you start rising, you are expected to carry everyone. When you say no, you are called selfish. So the mind learns something dangerous. If I succeed, I will suffer emotionally. Without realizing it, many people sabotage growth, not because they don't want wealth, but because wealth feels heavy. This is why the psychology of wealth begins with identity. Before your money changes, you must change. You must stop saying, I am broke, and start saying, I am in training. You are not poor, you are underinformed, and information can be fixed. Wealth is not hustle. Wealth is not lack. Wealth is not prayer alone. Wealth is alignment. Alignment between how you think, how you act, and how long you stay consistent. Most people fail not because they quit early, but because they never started correctly. If wealth was purely about effort, Africans would be the richest people on earth. We work hard, but wealth does not reward effort. It rewards direction, and direction always begins in the mind. Most people believe rich people think differently because they have money. That belief is backwards. They have money because they learned to think differently long before the money arrived. Wealth does not begin in the bank account. It begins in the mind, in the questions you ask yourself, and in the decisions you repeat daily, even when nobody is watching. The poor mindset is obsessed with cost, while the wealthy mindset is obsessed with value. A poor mindset asks, how much does it cost me now? A wealthy mindset asks, what will this return to me over time? One protects comfort. The other builds freedom. One avoids pain. The other chooses temporary pain for permanent gain. This difference alone explains why two people can earn the same income and end up in completely different financial realities. The poor mindset is emotional. It reacts, it spends when it feels good, and panics when things go wrong. The wealthy mindset is strategic. It plans, it allocates, it prepares for problems before they arrive. This is not about intelligence. It is about conditioning. If you grew up in an environment where money was always scarce, your brain learned to treat money like water in the desert. When it comes, you grab it quickly. You consume it quickly. You fear it disappearing. But you never build a system to store it. This is why many young Africans struggle financially even when they start earning. The income improves, but the mindset does not. So the money leaves as fast as it comes. New phone, new clothes, new lifestyle, not because the person is foolish, but because their identity is still wired for scarcity. They feel the need to prove they are no longer suffering. Unfortunately, money spent on validation never creates security. Wealthy thinking understands something uncomfortable. Status is expensive, freedom is quiet. Poor thinking tries to look rich. Wealthy thinking tries to become rich. One performs for the crowd. The other disappears to build. This is why wealthy people often look boring before they look successful. They delay applause. They delay recognition. They delay pleasure. In many African societies, poverty is normalized and ambition is treated with suspicion. If you aim too high, you are told to be realistic. If you question tradition, you are called disrespectful. If you dream beyond your environment, you are accused of forgetting where you come from. So many young Africans shrink their vision, not because they lack ambition, but because they fear social rejection. Wealth psychology demands something painful. You must be willing to be misunderstood for a long time. Poor thinking seeks relief. Wealthy thinking seeks progress. Relief feels like rest, entertainment, distraction, and escape. Progress feels like discipline, boredom, repetition, and delayed gratification. One gives comfort now and pain later. The other gives pain now and comfort later. This is why wealth is rare. Most people are not willing to feel uncomfortable today to avoid suffering tomorrow. Wealth psychology is about retraining the brain to value long-term rewards over short-term pleasure. This is not motivation, it is neurological training. There is a rule wealthy people live by, whether consciously or unconsciously. If something pays you instantly, it usually keeps you poor. If it pays you later, it can change your life. Skills pay later. Investments pay later. Businesses pay later. Discipline pays later. Poor thinking waits for perfect conditions. Wealthy thinking starts with what is available and improves along the way. Poor thinking says, I will start when I have money. Wealthy thinking says, I will build skills so money has a reason to find me. Poor thinking focuses on motivation. Weighty thinking focuses on systems. Motivation fades. Systems compound. A system is something you do, even when you don't feel like it. A system removes emotion from decision making. When you have systems for learning, for spending, for saving, and for building skills, you no longer rely on mood. Wealthy people trust structure more than feelings. Poor thinking trusts feelings more than structure. Another difference is time perception. Poor thinking lives in weeks and months. Wealthy thinking lives in years and decades. Wealthy thinking looks for ways to multiply effort through skills, systems, people, and technology. This is why wealthy people invest in learning before investing in things. Knowledge compounds faster than money. Once your mind upgrades, your income options multiply. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. Most people are not poor because they lack opportunity. They are poor because their thinking keeps them trapped in cycles that feel familiar. The brain prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar growth. Wealth requires stepping into discomfort repeatedly until your new identity becomes normal. Most Africans do not remain financially stuck because they lack intelligence, talent, or effort. They remain stuck because they are fighting modern economic battles with survival psychology. Africa does not suffer from lack of hustle. Africa suffers from lack of systems, leverage, and long-term financial thinking. When systems are weak, individuals must be mentally stronger, yet most people are never taught how to think beyond survival. In many African countries, income is treated as success. If you earn something, you are considered okay, but income is not wealth. Income is a temporary reward for effort. Wealth is what remains when you stop working. The tragedy is that many people work their entire lives without ever building something that works for them. They trade time for money and believe that is enough. It is not. The average young African has one source of income, one salary, one hustle, one fragile stream. Another major psychological trap is family obligation. In African culture, success is communal, but failure is personal. When you struggle, you are on your own. When you start rising, everyone remembers you. This creates an invisible tax on ambition. Wealthy thinking understands boundaries, not because wealthy people are heartless, but because they understand something painful. You cannot lift others if you never build strength yourself. You cannot become the solution if you remain part of the problem. Another silent killer is comparison. Social media has turned poverty into performance. People rent lifestyles, borrow validation, and compete with illusions. You see cars you do not own, trips funded by debt, and success that disappears offline. Poor thinking compares appearances. Wealthy thinking compares progress. One asks, who is ahead of me? The other asks, am I better than I was last year? Comparison distracts the mind from numbers. Wealth is mathematical, not emotional. Most Africans were never taught to manage money because money management was never the goal. Survival was, so people learn to spend, not to allocate. They learn to consume, not to compound. Wealth psychology replaces emotional spending with intentional systems. Motivation is unreliable. Discipline is dependable. Wealthy people build their lives around routines that protect progress. They remove decision fatigue by automating good behavior. Poor thinking waits to feel inspired. Wealthy thinking acts because the system says so. Another reason many Africans remain stuck is fear of risk. Not reckless risk, but calculated risk. When life has been unstable for a long time, the brain clings to certainty, even if that certainty leads to stagnation. Education alone is not enough. Certificates without skills do not produce value. Wealth follows usefulness, not titles. The world does not pay you for what you know. It pays you for what you can do. Wealth psychology understands leverage. One person with the right skill, system, or platform can earn more than thousands working hard without leverage. Leverage multiplies effort. Skills are leverage. Technology is leverage. Capital is leverage. Networks are leverage. The hardest truth is this: poverty feels familiar. Growth feels uncomfortable. The mind prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar success. This is why many people sabotage opportunities when things start improving. Not consciously, but psychologically. To escape financial struggle, you must outgrow the version of you that feels safe in limitation. You must accept discomfort as part of transformation. You must become comfortable with slow progress, boring routines, and delayed rewards. Wealth is not dramatic, it is repetitive. The journey from being broke to becoming wealthy is not a sudden jump. It is a psychological transformation that happens in stages, and every stage demands a different version of you. Most people fail because they want the rewards of wealth without passing through the mental phases required to handle it. Wealth does not arrive to save you, it arrives to test you. If your mind is not ready, it leaves. The first stage is humility. Humility is not humiliation. It is the ability to admit that what you currently know is not enough to produce the life you want. Ego keeps people poor longer than lack of opportunity ever will. When someone believes they already know enough, they stop learning. When learning stops, growth stops. Wealthy people remain students long after they start earning. Poor thinking stops studying the moment survival improves. Humility allows you to say, I need to learn how money works. I need to learn how businesses are built. I need to learn how skills are monetized. I need to learn how wealthy people think. This stage is uncomfortable because it exposes gaps in your knowledge, but those gaps are not weaknesses. They are entry points. The second stage is skill acquisition. Money does not chase certificates. Money chases value. The world rewards people who can solve problems, create results, and save time. Skills are the bridge between effort and income. Without skills, hard work stays hard. With skills, effort multiplies. Many people wait for money to start learning. Wealthy thinkers learn so money has a reason to arrive. Skills do not need permission. They need practice. Whether it is communication, sales, technology, writing, design, editing, analysis, or leadership, the skill you master becomes your leverage. Skills travel across borders. Skills ignore your background. Skills do not care where you started. Once you have them, your options expand. The third stage is discipline. Discipline is doing what must be done even when you do not feel like it. Discipline is not punishment. It is protection. It protects your future from your present emotions. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline stays. Wealth is built on boring routines repeated longer than most people are willing to endure. Discipline means waking up when it is uncomfortable, learning when nobody is watching, practicing when results are slow, saving when spending feels better. Discipline is not loud. It does not announce itself. But over time, it separates those who dream from those who build. The fourth stage is delayed gratification. This is where many people break. Delayed gratification means choosing long-term freedom over short-term pleasure. It means resisting status purchases and investing in assets. It means saying no to temporary comfort so future options can expand. Poor thinking buys things to feel successful. Wealthy thinking builds things to become successful. Delayed gratification feels unfair in the beginning. You watch others enjoy while you restrain yourself. But time reveals the difference. One lifestyle collapses under pressure. The other compounds quietly. Wealth is patient. Poverty is impatient. The fifth stage is identity shift. At this stage, you stop asking, how do I make money? And start asking, how do I build systems? Systems remove emotion from success. Systems turn effort into predictable results. Systems free you from relying on willpower. Wealthy people think in processes. Poor thinking relies on energy and mood. When identity changes, behavior follows naturally. You stop chasing motivation. You stop needing validation. You stop explaining your vision to people who cannot see it. You become comfortable moving alone. Wealth requires solitude before it allows abundance. Another critical shift happens here. You stop seeing money as the goal. You start seeing money as a byproduct of value creation. The obsession with money fades, and the obsession with mastery replaces it. Ironically, this is when money begins to flow more easily. The final stage is patience. Wealth moves slower than social media suggests, but faster than most people realize. Compounding is quiet in the beginning. Progress looks invisible. Doubt increases. This is where most people quit. Not because it is impossible, but because it feels unrewarding. Wealth rewards those who stay consistent when results are boring. Time is the most underestimated factor in wealth. Small actions repeated over years outperform dramatic efforts repeated for weeks. Wealth is not explosive, it is accumulative. It grows while you sleep, while you work, while you learn, but only if you stay aligned long enough. Here is the truth most people never hear. Wealth is not about luck. It is about alignment between mindset, habits, skills, and time. When these align, progress becomes inevitable. When they do not, effort feels wasted. Africa does not need miracles. Africa needs disciplined thinkers. Thinkers who understand systems. Thinkers who delay pleasure. Thinkers who build skills before demanding rewards. The future of wealth on this continent belongs to those who think differently long before they earn differently. If you are watching this while broke, confused, and hungry for more, you are not behind. You are early, but only if you commit to change. Only if you stop blaming circumstances and start upgrading your thinking. Only if you accept that wealth is built slowly, deliberately, and intentionally. The world is changing. Africa is rising. And wealth will belong to those who prepare their minds before their money arrives.